Last week's MHA episode was pretty good. I'd say like a 10 out of 10. So why in the hell is this week's episode even better? Do we need to create a new scale? I think we do. Every time there is a 10 out of 10 that goes beyond 10 out of 10, we should get this like a choo-choo out of 10. And remember to use my link in the pinned comment or code CTactics to get 10% off all orders site-wide. I recommend Cursed Energy, Snapdragon, and Mango for my current flavors. Thanks to GamerSupps for being a partner. So MHA does really well when it comes to certain things like commentary, and this episode was no different, as this episode gave us some shine to characters like Spinner, one of the most underrated characters and absolutely most underrated villains in the series. We also get a glimpse of Shoji's past in the very beginning, where people in his village essentially stoned him out of it, telling him that he wasn't allowed there because of him being a heteromorph. This is something that I think in turn makes characters like Spinner, well, spin, if you see what I did there, because a common theme of the LOV, as an example, is that they're all essentially created through societal rejection. Spinner was born this way because he could not help that, not one bit, but still, because they're different, people reject people like Spinner wholesale. And what that creates is a divide, even though on the inside, they're all literally the same. They're all in this same boat together. That is what's most interesting about the LOV and Shoji in this episode. They're essentially just regular people turned evil through society turning the other cheek, pretending that they don't exist, which further isolates them to extreme corners. Spinner, Twice, Toga, these three characters to me represent the heart of this theme throughout the entire series. However, we go back in time a little bit after Dabi was captured. Spinner leads an attack on the central hospital to take back Kurogiri, and this leads to a riot with the remaining heroes supporting the police. Mike nearly falls on a trident,
and I killed a guy with a trident,
but is quickly saved, which leads to a moment where Locke and everyone realizes something is up. This mob is strangely organized. Too organized, because they're actively trying to split them up. And as Locke is surrounded by people, heteromorphs tell him that they aren't a mob, that people like him are always like this, have these reactions, that those who look like humans could never understand what they go through. And the mob pins Koji down, yelling at him that they are the traitors. Now, it turns out they've rejected everything society teaches. Quirk, counseling, and education. They think stuff like that's all a sham because of the 6-6 incident, and the Great Jeddah Purge in their minds prove this. And they remember all of the comments from the people well, as they remember some people saying they took part in killing heteromorphs just because they look different and that brought them satisfaction. And in the present, even though society has rejected those past generations for the hatefulness they spewed, they don't see society as getting better, because to them, they're faking it. They're pretending. And the people in the city see their education as just a front. A lie, because when you leave the city, suddenly everyone reveals their true colors. What's up with that? This right here is one of the crux of why this movement on that basis is being misled. I say this because cities typically have more funding. They're more of a gigantic melting pot of different kinds of people. Take literally any city in the United States as an example. Hell, you could do around the world. They're all full of different kinds of people, and typically that means naturally those in cities have more experience with different types of people, and not just whether they're heteromorphs, but also colors, shapes, sizes. There's an acceptance because of more exposure. But when you leave cities, you get into areas where people are isolated from one another to some degree, more or less. This isn't the cause, but just another factor in what can trigger things like the racism they're dealing with. Because also, these rural areas are, generally speaking, not as well funded as cities because everyone is so spread out. Much like how the people in these areas misunderstand and are misled to believe heteromorphs are all evil, this group of heteromorphs have chosen to fall to the level of the people who have wronged them in the past, which is very natural and understandable. You can't really fault someone in these rural areas outside the city for being angry at non-heteromorphs, because they too run into the same issues the racists against heteromorphs do as well. After all, they live in the same environment. So So think of it this way, if you live in a land of extremes, chances are you will develop extreme tendencies to a degree, as that is primarily what you are likely exposed to the most. But these people are just as wrong, because violence and extremism isn't the answer. It's unity and working together to make sure nobody is isolated. Everyone is welcomed into the fabric of society, even if your cloth is made from different materials or is a different color. And we see how Redestro orchestrated this. They used their angst, hatred, and rage to program people into eating the slop they're serving. Because when someone doesn't belong to a group and are isolated, they form bonds through rejection. And that rejection can be very easily manipulated by smart people who know every little button they can press to get the reaction they need. And in this instance, Spinner was given more power to essentially do whatever to carry himself to the next violent outcome. Redestro giving him this power is really a metaphor for what these people do to society. They empower and embolden the worst parts of humanity to bubble up to the top. Redestro was very aware of this. If you can make the people believe they are the liberators, that they are the chosen ones, the only ones who can fight, then that is exactly what you're going to get. Hate-fueled, hurt people, hurting people. There is always an option, but these people make others feel like there is only one: violence. This then leads to Shoji fighting against the hate-fueled mob, trying to remind them that the hospital has nothing to do with the hurt inside of them. This isn't about us versus them, it's about trying to understand one another and reach the highest ground. Because Shoji, funnily enough, experienced everything they had. But instead of choosing violence, he chose to seek progress. And trust me, there is a difference. Violence destroys. Progress heals. Shoji understands this because he sought it out for himself. Granted, he had the opportunity to do that, but as we see from his past, he was in a much similar position to other heteromorphs too. So Horikoshi is showing that Shoji consciously made the effort to fight through progress, not through violence. This shows that everybody has a choice, and it doesn't matter whether they formed a mob or hurt others. These people can still change and be enlightened. They're just misled. So how does that fever get broken? Well, if you ask me, it's through listening to 24/7 AI-generated memes of Deku reciting Shrek is love. Then again, that's probably just me, right? However, Spinner, now confronted with the voice of many, asking for his order, because after all, a huge aspect of these kinds of movements is swearing fealty to the message, and the silent part of that message is to follow the leader who controls the message. These people don't even think for themselves, not even for 1 second, because if they did, then there'd be no need for violence, for war, for conflict, because they too would see the error of their ways, and that is more painful than a broken heart. Spinner, though, he's lost it. He doesn't care. So the people watching from atop use this moment to twist his reaction into, oh, but what he's actually saying is that bloodshed is how history is made, which is like not at all what he said or meant. In other words, this is doublespeak, 1984 style, baby. The one Orson Welles warned about. Did you know Orson Welles voiced Unicron in the Transformers? You probably, whatever. It's not what he said at all, that's the point. So just ignore reality and continue to push forward with violence because truth is more painful. Become martyrs, so your rights will eventually exist. And the humorous thing is that they already had rights. This is when we get a Shoji flashback where he tells his friends that despite him being ostracized and treated like subhuman scum, instead of tallying up the bad memories, he instead chose to cling to the one good memory he had of saving a little girl. Now that's why, like those who've come before, he wants to pass that on. He doesn't want to breed generational hate. He wants to create generational love. Love for the small things in life that bring joy. To remind those that need it the most to be a symbol, a lighthouse on troubled waters that no matter how bad the storm may be, the one thing that matters the most is taking on all obstacles and setbacks with stride and heart. Because it's not about the scars that you wear, but the memories which give those scars meaning. When you break an arm, it heals eventually, but at that moment, that broken arm seems like the most painful thing in the world. But it does get better, and it does heal, but only if you seek help for it. Only if you put in the work to get up, drive to the hospital, and take those necessary steps to heal and rehabilitate. That's what shoji symbolizes: indomitable character. We then get this incredible scene where we see people, all different types from Shoji and Koji's past, where they do their best to teach young people to stand up to hate. Because when someone is being made fun of, someone you care about, or just someone who is in need, for their appearance, defend them. Stand up to hate. When you're saved from someone who may look scary, understand who made them look scary in the first place. Shoji refuses to turn into a person who lives for revenge. He doesn't want to be like Spinner, who encases himself in armored scale so that he may never break free from them. Like I said, this episode was incredible. And it ends with Spinner breaking into the hospital, so I can't not wait for episode 15. All right. So this is the internet, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people telling me in the comments I'm wrong about this because it's a positive message, but I truly believe in what Horikoshi was truly trying to convey with this episode. I think this is by far one of the best written episodes from the perspective of conveying one message: love over hate. Every single day of the week, 24/7. Generational hate and revenge is not the answer. Progress is the answer to the pain of living, because progress doesn't stop. You may not like it, you may not agree with it, but humans have the unique ability to reach for and achieve aspirations over generations. Shoji, Koji, Spinner, and Heteromorphs, they're all on the front lines of this battle, and they must win the right way because the war never truly stops. Not until every single person is held up equally to one another. That's the message to me. Reach higher ground. But what are your thoughts on this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Let's see if we can get this video to 200 likes to spread the positive message of the episode and as well to help further grow the channel. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.